Welcome into the Big 12 conference preview. We're looking at the Big 12 from a betting perspective. Yes, some teams are leaving, at least most likely, but we're looking at it for a betting perspective for 2021. I am Drew Martin, joined by Robbie Veno of WagerTalk.com. Robbie, let's get right into this Big 12 conference. We got some changes in the offseason. What do you think is top of note here in the Big 12 conference in terms of changes going on?
Well, I think the Kansas situation is one that you don't usually run into, Drew. The coaching overhaul, the change came after spring practice was already concluded. Right? Les Miles and staff went through spring practice, and then Les Miles got canned, and Lance Leipold and his Buffalo staff move in, but they didn't have spring practice with this team, so familiarity, even with his players, had to be done from May through right now. And now as they head into summer camp, fall camp, they'll have to put some things together on the field. So what you have there at least is continuity, Drew. As I mentioned, Lance Leipold comes over as the new head coach, taking over here. Andy Kotelnicki, his offensive coordinator, not only with Buffalo, but back to Wisconsin Whitewater. He comes with him, as does the defensive coordinator, Brian Borland. So these three have been together for a long, long time. I think at least since 2013, and it goes back even deeper than that with, I think, either the OC or the DC. Baylor. Couple of things to check in with here. The one major one, Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator for BYU, who had a historic, offensive season last year with Zach Wilson and company. Jeff Grimes is your new offensive coordinator. And Drew, they kicked out one of your buddies, Larry Fedora, no longer the offensive coordinator in Waco. Jeff Grimes going to bring in a new pro-style offense, the one he ran at BYU. Features some wide zone, which wide zone, we might get into that a little bit. It seems to be the new rage in running games across the country here. He nicknamed this offense RVO. RV, not because it's Rob Veno's offense, RVO. RVO because they call this thing reliably violent offense. Interesting nickname. We'll see if it works in Waco. Texas Tech, Sonny Cumbie comes in to run the air raid for Matt Wells. Out goes his OC for, quite a few years now. Back to Utah State. David Yost out, Sonny Cumbie in. And at Texas, of course, you have the biggest news of all, right? Steve Sarkisian, the hire there as head coach. Kyle Flood, who was the Alabama offensive line coach, comes in as OC. Comes over, actually, from Alabama with Sarkisian. He was the Rutgers head coach prior to that. And Pete Kwiatkowski, the DC for the Washington Huskies, since 2014, takes over defensively here. Interesting notes here real quick about Sarkisian and this offense. They have a saying around Texas now, Drew. I don't know. We love these catchy little sayings, right? They mean something now. They may not mean anything in the fall. They run around saying all gas, no brakes. Probably has something to do with the tempo of this offense. However, it hasn't been easy to learn. Spring reports out of there have some of the players saying that playbook is a load to learn. New formations, new terminology, new route combinations, new blocking schemes. And, they head into August still working on knowing what the heck they're doing there in Texas. So as talented as they might be, who knows if they grasp the system right away. And for Kwiatkowski, it's what he calls his anti-tempo defense. An interesting situation here where they run a base 2-4-5 and don't change personnel unless they're in the red zone, and they just run different fronts with the same personnel. 2-4-5 into a 3-man front, into a 4-man front. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly Texas grasps all their systems. But that's what's new with coaching changes across the Big 12.
Nice, Robbie. Well done. And starting with the changes, talk about 2-4-5, two defensive linemen, Robbie. Talk about the Big 12 conference. That will be fun to watch, see how that works out. So the changes, good job recapping that. We got favorite up next here, Robbie, talking about Oklahoma Sooners. Nothing new this season. I believe 6 straight conference championships. They're also in the win total market. Looks like 11 for the win total. As we can see here on the screen, talk about not getting a plus price with the favorite. That's tough when the sports books hold your money so long, but still a unit is a unit. Minus 180 for Oklahoma to win the conference. And then we're seeing next up here, Iowa State plus 260, Texas plus 450, Oklahoma State, TCU, Baylor kind of rounding it out here with West Virginia plus 5,000 before we get into the long shots. You think anything's worth a bet here? Or you think Oklahoma just kind of steamrolls everybody and minus 180 is probably the bet to make?
Yeah, I think they probably do steamroll, Drew, but whether or not it's a bet I would make, because I think it's so dependent upon Spencer Rattler, right? You have to make sure, and the same with Iowa State. If an injury were to occur to Spencer Rattler or Brock Purdy, you could pretty much shred those tickets because the backup situations aren't going to be real good in either instance, or at least they're not going to be nearly as productive as the two starters. But Oklahoma, I mean, we can just go into some impact transfers to make the rich even richer. This team, they raided Tennessee. I mean, it's as if they just wanted to pick on Tennessee. They get Eric Gray, running back out of Tennessee, who was 247's number 2 impact player out of the transfer portal this year. 1,026 scrimmage yards for the running back at Tennessee last year. Eric Gray helps the offense. And then Oklahoma takes Tennessee's number 1 left tackle, Wanya Morris. So not only do they add strength to their offensive line, they add it to the ground game. It certainly makes them the cream of the crop here in this particular conference. We'll see if Lincoln Riley can get over the hump. I don't know that anybody else is going to win that league, Drew. Iowa State certainly does play them tough, though. So, you want to take a shot with Iowa State? Absolutely, because they make life difficult for Oklahoma in recent years. I don't know that anybody else there, barring injury, like I say, to a quarterback, can pull this conference title off. But certainly there's things to look at where over-under wins and weekly ATS stuff is concerned.
And Robbie, when we start looking at maybe a dark horse here, a team to kind of maybe push Oklahoma, not necessarily win it, but a team that can also perform well against the spread this season in the Big 12. Just want to throw a couple out here that I was kind of circling. Texas, the Longhorns, of course, Sark in his first year. What's going to happen with that? Oklahoma State, high upside quarterback and Spencer Sanders in that offense. We always have Gary Patterson, TCU. Don't think we can necessarily count them out. Baylor, maybe some talent there, but how's their quarterback room going to be? Kansas State, Kyler Thompson at the quarterback position. And last here, West Virginia, Neil Brown, what he was able to do at Troy in the Sun Belt. Now it's his 3rd year here with West Virginia. Could they be a little bit under the radar? What's your kind of thoughts here, Big 12 dark horse, Robbie?
I think there's reasons to like and situations to like all of those that you mentioned, Drew. But for me, the team on a weekly ATS, in a weekly ATS situation against the spread, and I looked at the season wins, and I still may get there with season wins, but it's a little bit tougher. But on a week-to-week basis, and a team that I think could be the long shot in the conference, it's Oklahoma State. I watch Big 12 media days pretty closely, Drew, and one of our favorite head coaches is Mike Gundy for no other reason than he doesn't hide anything. I mean, this guy's a straight shooter. You don't have to sift through coach speak when you're listening to Mike Gundy. I'm going to bring you some of the highlights of what he said that day because I was taking notes the whole day as I was watching it. But Mike Gundy said this is the fastest defensively his team has ever been since he got there. And he talked about, the Big 12 and the rap that they take as a group, as an entire conference for the defense that they play and how they've had to really find ways to step up and stop air raid and high tempo because that was the first conference with those types of offenses. Obviously, the defenses got shredded for a lot of years, but he thinks that defensively, you're going to see a big difference in what the Big 12 defenses provide here. He claims, is the fastest he's ever had. Spencer Sanders, a guy that you just mentioned, he said Spencer Sanders made a huge leap, and not just a huge leap, but the biggest leap he's seen a quarterback of his make in the spring since he's been there at OSU. He said the team, certainly their offensive production hinges upon the play of Spencer Sanders, but he went down a whole list of reasons why the leap was made and what necessarily the things were that he improved on. I think Spencer Sanders is ready for a breakout season. You never worry about Oklahoma State at the wide receiver position. You don't worry about this running back room because they're loaded. So Spencer Sanders, better play there helps. And he really focused in on the offensive line, which he said is markedly better. Those three reasons, Drew, fastest defense he's ever had, a quarterback that improved from last year and then to the spring season more than any he's ever had, and an offensive line that is much better. A lot of times, markedly better. A lot of times you would hear that and you would say it's just the coach being positive. But again, this is Mike Gundy, and he doesn't lie about anything. If they weren't that good, he would tell you they weren't that good. So I think Oklahoma State, week to week, might be underrated in the point spread, considering when we look at those odds right there, right? The top three go to plus 450, and then all of a sudden Oklahoma drops down to plus 1,200. Kind of shows you what the odds makers think Oklahoma State's chances are. I think they're pretty good as far as betting proposition week to week goes.
Yeah, maybe the odds makers underrating the Cowboys there in Stillwater. All right, Robbie, we're up against it time-wise, but last thing on the docket here, team to fade in the Big 12. I also want to bring up something because I wanted to ask you, the Kansas Jayhawks, their season win total at 1.5, heavy juice towards the under as well, so we can almost call it kind of a quasi 1.5 here as their season win total, Robbie. 0-9 last year with the Jayhawks. Looking at their schedule, they got South Dakota, they got at Coastal Carolina, and at Duke. I don't think they're beating the Shants or the Dukies there, so they're going to need that South Dakota win and find one more Big 12-style win here, Robbie. I think it's going to be tough for the Jayhawks, but you're looking for a sleeper hire out there, guys, a sleeper good hire in the offseason. Lance Leopold at Kansas. That one was surprising to me, Robbie. I love it. What he was able to do there at Buffalo and then Wisconsin Whitewater winning national championships at lower level football. I actually think that translates in. They have a puncher's chance, let's call it, Robbie, to make a bowl game maybe in his tenure here. Interested in your thoughts on that? Maybe a team to fade in the Big 12 if it's not Kansas.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with how good the hire is, Drew. I mean, it's a down the road type of hire for sure. But you know, you mentioned that, and here's my notes, but all on how to, why we should fade Kansas. I'm not in the market of laying minus 190, but I willingly do it here. Kansas, to get the 2 wins, to me, seems more than improbable at this point in time. I just discussed real quickly the situation that they're in. The coach didn't even get spring practice with his team, has to come in. His system is so drastically different than the spread that they were running under Brent Dearman here. You've got personnel that doesn't fit. You've got guys flying out of the program, transfers coming into the program. You know, Jason Bean, quarterback for North Texas, is coming in the summer, but he came to Kansas because they were in a spread. This is a spread quarterback at North Texas, and now he gets, Lance Leipold's offense. The whole thing is a complete and total overhaul. If they beat South Dakota, that's their 1 win. I don't even know that they will beat South Dakota because it's the first game of the season. I could see them easily going winless here, but down the road, you do love the hire. Eventually, he'll get his personnel. His systems will be worked in real quick. I'll throw one more at you here. Season over-under win total. Texas Tech potentially over 4.5 seems a little low. Matt Wells' team has been at the 4 number the past 2 seasons. They're just enough better defensively this year to maybe get to that 5th win. The schedule indicates there are some spots. If they can get 1 of 3 home games, K-State, TCU, or Oklahoma State, probably get to that 5 mark. So team with Sonny Cumbie coming in to run the air raid again. Matt Wells was pretty positive on the offensive stuff here. Maybe over 4.5 with Texas Tech, a good look for over-under win total.
He's Robbie Veno on Twitter at Rob Veno Sports. I'm Drew Martin on Twitter at Drew Martin Bets. Guys, make sure to stay tuned to the WagerTalk YouTube channel for more college football conference previews. For Robbie Veno, Drew Martin, thanks for tuning in, guys. Best of luck with your bets.